welcome to the best of everything. I am Ruben Paul. And of course, as usual, I got my brother, the watered down Mexican, the Portuguese assassin,
Yes.
the one and only Mr. Danny Sanchez.
Yeah,
What up,
yeah.
Danny?
What's up? What's up, brother? What's up?
I'm
What's up,
excited today. I'm excited today because I have a good friend of mine that's on the show. Fabulous comedian, pun intended. One of the best working today. You've seen her on Raising Whitley. You've seen her on Gotham Live, but most of you guys fell in love with her on America's Got Talent. My girl, the multifaceted, multi-talented, with the New York hat. For you guys who are watching, for you guys listening, she's rocking a New York hat. That's where she is living now. The one and only Ms. Jackie Fabulous. How are you, Jackie?
What it do? I wish I had a blunt to make it official. You sounded really East Coast just now. I'm like, I wish I had like a gigantic bong. I'd be like, hey, represent.
So where in New York are you now, Jackie? Where you living?
The Bronx. I'm the Bronx. Born and raised in the Bronx, and the house I grew up in, my house, it's always been here.
Oh, wow.
And I moved back long before the world collapsed. And I think that was Jesus saying, hey, I'm about to fuck the world up for a minute. You should probably move back.
Wow. Let's start there. For you guys listening, I met Jackie in Los Angeles. We worked clubs together for years. And then one day I just called Jackie. I don't know what I called you for. I think I called you to do Ruby Tuesdays. And you're like, I'm in New York now. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, Ruben, I'm from here. I don't know, for some reason, you don't have that New York vibe to you. From my perspective, like most New Yorkers have a like this vibe. But no, you seem like more Midwest. You got a Midwest vibe to me.
Yes, I have to agree. I actually thought she was either Midwest or from the Southeast, from the South somewhere.
I don't know where those places are. I don't do geography, but I was born and raised in the Bronx.
Like Georgia. I thought you might have been from Georgia or
have an accent.
North Carolina. I know, but
she's not country, Johnny.
No, people from Atlanta don't have a southern drawl out there and stuff like that. Bigger cities in the South, you know.
So Jackie, you'd come to LA, and in it's always different from the outside looking in, but from the outside, for all of us, you've been doing very well. What prompted the move back to New York? What was the reason behind it?
In all honesty, thank God, thankfully, there were no family deaths. Nothing horrible happened. I just started feeling very stagnant. My career in LA, I felt like I was auditioning like crazy, big auditions, small, all in between, and I wasn't really booking. I was on this path after America's Got Talent. Actually, no, I did a showcase at the Improv for Fox, and I met every executive in LA and all of them, and just nothing was turning into an actual project. So I always said, I'm like, I live in LA, but I'm also from the other comedy mecca. So do I have to stay in LA? I can live in New York and still be a complete part of the entertainment bit, a part of our world.
Absolutely.
And I was just bored. I was lonely in my apartment by myself. My sex life was dry and boring and low. Everything was just boring. I was just bored. I felt like I was a regular at all the clubs in LA, and they all knew me. It felt so repetitive, and nothing was going up. Nothing was going up. And I felt like the number 2 motivation to moving back to New York. I'm like, I'm in at the Cellar, and if I can become a regular player at the Cellar, then moving back will make sense. If I didn't have a comedy home, I would not have moved back.
Yeah.
So moving back, knowing that they would welcome me and give me spots, made moving back way less traumatic because my life didn't change that much.
Got you. So let me ask you this, Jackie. So did you start doing comedy in New York, then move to LA, or did you start doing comedy in LA?
Everything happened in Orange County, California. When I moved from New York in 2000, I moved to Orange County to go to law school, and I rented a room out of some lady's house. And I didn't start comedy until I was 35. And I'm gonna be 49 in a few weeks. So that was when I started. And I moved out to LA just because I was tired of New York. I was in a relationship with a guy who wouldn't marry me. So I'm not gonna date you until I got gray hair. I need my life to, what I realize is that if I notice that things aren't changing for the better, I will pack up all my shit and leave.
That's a great quality, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I heard a conversation the other day when people talk about like, when do you give up and quit? Sometimes it's not about giving up or quitting. It's realizing that you just need to make an adjustment and make a change. Like even in sports, if we use sports as an analogy, you go into a game with a game plan, but sometimes in the middle of the game, your objective is still to win, but you might change tactics on your journey. And that's great that you recognize and go, you know what? I need to shake this up a little bit.
Yeah, you know, my only motivation was to shake it up. And with America's Got Talent, I realized that show would make me popular enough to make headlining around the world less challenging, less hard to get booked. Yeah. So I'm like, I need one TV credit, a big one, so that I can live in New York and still work as much as anything. So it was the move, and the move happened literally less than a month, or probably an exact month after America's Got Talent ended. And I'm like, well, now I have that credit. People know who I am. People meaning bookers. So my income won't change. So when I moved back to New York, I was touring every week. And when I wasn't on tour Thursday through Sunday or Monday, I was on stage at the Cellar every day of the week. Literally, I'm looking back, it was too much. I was killing myself. I was dying, but I was very happy.
You know? I mean, Bonnie, do you have anything?
Well, just because since we're on the topic of speaking of AGT and everything, I remember you posting. You had posted. This is when you were first going to appear on it. And you had posted, and I'm just really curious about this because I know, and I've gone through this with competitions. I've never been a fan of them. I've avoided a lot of them. And I remember you posting something like, "I know I said I'd never do another competition, but you might just see me on." And you were in a photo of you in front of me. So what was it? And I mean, look how great the choice was for you, but at that time, because you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. What was it that changed what drew you to do it where you had already said, I'm not doing these anymore? Because I know that feeling. I'm there. I've been there, and I'm still there.
My new rule was I wasn't going to do another comedy contest unless it was Last Comic Standing level or higher. Like I kept getting called to do small ones here and there, and I'm like, none of this little shits anymore. That's ridiculous. I'm too traumatized from Last Comic Standing to do every contest that comes along.
Yes.
And in all honesty, I knew deep down in my soul that if I got on America's Got Talent, I would last for a minute. Not win, not semi. I just know that I wouldn't get kicked off again. I'm like, if I get kicked off first round, I'm killing everybody in the studio. so I knew. And I knew that my comedy was so consistent. It was becoming persistent where I'm like, I'm not going to go there with a new formula. I'm not going to go there with a new plan. I'm going to do what I've been doing on every stage. And if that can't get me at least past round one. So it was just knowing that I was ready for a show that, and I knew that show was the show that was going to let me work. Like my only, like when I got there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I also want to explain to people that it's not only it's the material that you've been using that has been working, but but you have to strategically figure out how to do that in 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Now, you're doing all your other stuff, doing 20-minute sets and 30 and 45, and depending on where you are. So I got to give you credit because, and I want people to understand, it's very difficult. I did Last Comic twice, and I tried AGT about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's difficult to choose what you're going to put together and how you're going to do it in that small amount of time. So it's still, even though you're consistent all the time, you still have to make that choice for those 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And that takes a lot. Ruben and I discussed how would we break down our sets in those times. And you did it really, really, really great job, man.
Thank you.
I mean, it seemed like you were doing a longer set in your sets, to be honest.
When I would watch them, because I'm a little bit insane, right? I like watching myself. When I watch them,
that's good.
Because I've always known, I've had to break it down for Last Comic and for other short set shows. My jokes, you rarely last longer than 2 minutes. And I realized that when I had to break down my material to see, okay, can you do AGT? Can you do Last Comic? And when I had to write out my jokes for Last Comic, and even before Last Comic, on average throughout my whole career, I'm not a storyteller. And even if I am a storyteller, there's small jokes within the story. Yeah. So my comedy style lends well to a contest because my jokes rarely go above 1 minute 30 to 2 minutes.
There you go.
So because I dissected that and knew, I'm like, well, now just pick 3 or 4 or 5 jokes, and that will fit the NBC curriculum. And of course, they're gonna vet me because the thing about my jokes is that even though I can be naughty, I can do all of my material clean. None of it has to be a gratuitous F-bomb or a dick joke. I can just take away dick and say make love. You know, I can just change it all.
Yes. So, well, that's the thing that I appreciated about watching you, because we do work a lot, and I know you can work, Blue, but it was great to see you in that primetime TV friendly slot where you can just kill just as hard without being Blue, or like you said, you have this type of joke that. Okay. Is that you, Johnny?
Nobody moved.
Yeah, there was some stuff coming. Okay. There was just it was just great to see you work that muscle that a lot of people probably never got to see you work like that.
No, people were surprised. You know who was surprised when I was touring during the show, and I think I was telling audiences around the country, hey, look out for me on AGT. So many people after the show and audiences were like, how are you going to do that show? You were so naughty tonight. Or they'd be like, you can't be dirty on the show. I'm like, bitches, I know the rules.
That's what I buttoned up.
But they were so concerned. They pulled me aside like, look, you were really funny tonight, but you can't do that material on the show. I'm like, I know, ma'am. I know, grandma.
Let me ask you this, Rocky. Let me ask you this. So from going from AGT being clean, do you have the opposite reaction? What is that?
Who's that? Is that me?
I think it's you, Johnny.
Do you still hear it?
Yeah.
No, nothing now.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
All right, let's just keep going. So, do you get the reverse now when people discover you on AGT and then they come and see you?
Yeah.
You're not squeaky clean. What is that like?
That happens a lot. Where, actually, God, I haven't forgotten, but you know how we've compartmentalized our set because we haven't been performing. But when I was touring, in my opening, hi guys, hey, I'm here in Seattle, blah blah blah. I would also follow up with, some of you may or may not have seen me on America's Got Talent. Just so you know, that was television. That wasn't the real fucking world. And that first F-bomb, they'd be like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, so if you're expecting a clean bitch, I'm like, I'm out here in the middle of Arkansas. I give a fuck about being clean. And then they're like, oh, okay, all right. But I did that every show I did. I'd be like, that was TV, guys. This is the real world.
Yeah.
So I would, because I don't want to shock them and ignore the fact that these old people saw me at 8:00 on Tuesday, and they were like, "Oh, she's so cute." And then I get on stage, and I was like, "Blowjobs! I'm telling you, I'm sick of doing them." And then like, shit, So
let me ask you this: you mentioned earlier about getting your name out there and making it easier for you to headline. Now, I'm friends with a lot of comedians who are women, and I understand the struggle it is for women in this business to headline.
Yeah.
And we know sometimes, like we see in the entertainment industry all the time, like we've seen Black people win Oscars and still their career doesn't get a huge bump.
Yeah.
Now, you being successful on America's Got Talent, you being hilarious, did you still find it challenging to get as many dates as you would like, or like what was the temperature like for you getting booked after that, or did it seem
getting booked after the show, even during the show, because the show, I would send them my schedule every week or every 2 weeks, and they would have me come back to compete another round in my schedule. They would accommodate me. So they're like, okay, we see you're leaving on Thursday. We'll have you come in on Tuesday. Because they knew, I'm like, because AGT does not pay. I'm like, look, I love you guys, but I have to eat. Fuck this show. And they're like, okay, well, we'll have you come in between taping. And they knew, and I told them, I was like, I love you guys, but I'm gonna pick money over it. I have to eat. So the booking during the performing was easy because people would be like, I could promote my next round, because it would be taped. I'd be allowed to tell them sometimes, but it didn't. I will say that I was going through like a jealous period because I was looking at Preacher Lawson's schedule. I was looking at Samuel Comroe's schedule, and their schedule would be fucking insane. It would be like, and a lot of the clubs that we are told are the A clubs. It was still hard. It's still hard for me to get in them. Like I was like, why can't like the improvs around the country? Like my whole comedy career began at the Improv, the Hollywood Improv. And I got really, I'm still hurt. I'm still mad at you guys now. I love you, but I'm still traumatized that they weren't one of the first clubs to be like, all right, let's go. Let's tour all the Improv. It still hasn't happened. I still bug them all the time. They still don't book me. I had not been on stage at another Improv outside of Cali headlining yet. So a lot of the A clubs still don't fuck with me. And will they? Hopefully, but I'm not going to give up because, I deserve it.
Yeah. Well, in all honesty, me and Johnny have talked about this for years. I've talked about it with a lot of comedians of color. It's like a lot of times we'll have more credits, we'll be more accomplished, better live show, but you'll see lesser getting booked on a regular basis. And you kind of wonder, why is that? Why is there this disparity in, comedians of color getting booked at these A rooms, even when you have more credits than your white counterparts?
Yeah.
That's always been. Even
if it's not even more credit, it's just, I'm on TV right now. Like you kind of wonder, what can I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. Yeah. I'm like, you guys knew, like these clubs, the Funny Bones and the Improvs, they're part of the comedy education. They watch you grow up to be good enough to headline. And the owners of the Improv, they all know who I am. We all know each other. So I am always kind of hurt. Like, guys, you guys have known me since day one. Why can't you just let me just occasionally do the Miami Improv, Chicago? Like, why one weekend? And, I don't know what it is. Because also they're very used to the repetitive of what they've always had.
Yeah.
Like they have a lot of the comics who came before me, they still do the weekends. So unless they're not available, they're not going to let New Jackie in. Or they already have a comic like me. They let one at a time. They got Lonnie Love, although she's not a club person anymore. But like we already got Lonnie doing an improv tour. We don't need another plus size funny black girl. They didn't tell me that, but when you look at the schedule, you're kind of like, guys, you gotta let the new class give us a chance. You don't gotta give me the whole year, but every now and then, just throw me a weekend. Just every once in a while.
But what's frustrating about hearing that, to me, it's not about the new class. It's just about more inclusion. You know what I mean? Like, why can't they book you and Lonnie Love? Johnny, you're about to say something.
No. Keep going with what you're saying. I was just agreeing with her on. I just was reiterating how crazy that is to me. That's still not happening. What she accomplished.
Is that me?
Where is coming from?
It's not me.
Is it me?
I think it's you, Johnny. Is there? I don't know.
Headphones?
I got earbuds. You want to put them in?
Try that. See if that works.
Yeah, maybe try that. There's just like this every once in a while the static comes in. I just have had this conversation so many times with different comedians, and it's almost like there's a quota, and the fact that you're on TV during the time you're on TV currently and still having problems getting booked is an issue. That is a problem that I think needs to be addressed, especially in this time where, we're talking about more inclusion and more diversity and everything. That goes for comedy clubs and the entertainment business, as a whole, where things change. You shouldn't be, I was told a lot of times, sometimes they only book one Black comic a month, was their thing, or one, and then if it's not Black, the Latino takes the spot of the Black comic, so it's only ethnic comic a month. So, I mean, this is,
or they have one woman the whole, like, I remember when I did a popular club in Ohio, and I was in the office when the weekend was over to get my check, and the schedule was on the wall in the office. And while the manager walking in and out, I'm looking at the schedule. I'm like, you got one woman and then over the next 7-8 months, because they had the whole year on the wall. And I'm like, I'm like, you have one female? And and I would text all the female comic headliners. I'm like, hey, hit him up. I told him you will be harassing him. Give more spots, and that works sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what needs to happen.
I just think people need to understand that clubs need to be more diverse. That's why I created Ruby Tuesdays in the first place, for more inclusion. I have women on my show all the time, and I make it a point. Because there is an audience out there, but this whole stigma of women aren't funny and people don't like women is not true. There are a lot of many women out there that are doing great. It's just these books.
Is it again? Is it me? I don't hear anything, so it must be me.
Just sit back. Sit back.
Are you hearing that, Chris? Oh, it's Johnny? Oh, it's you, Johnny. I guess it was happening to you yesterday, too.
Okay. Should I check out and check back in?
What do you think, Chris? Yeah, just check out and check back in. Let's see if that'll work.
Check out, check back in.
Okay.
Oh, wow, quiet.
Now it's quiet. but it just bothers me, Jackie, because I see a lot of times that there should be, like, I know when I do my show and a woman comes up, it changes the whole dynamic of the room, because it's, you know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, okay, we have a different perspective, a different point of view. And I think that's important, that, different points of view should be represented on shows. It's just like if you're on a show and it's all white and then a Black person comes up, or a Latino person comes up, or something other than white, it changes the dynamic, because now you have a different point of view. And I just always wondered that, seeing your success on that, I'm like, your schedule should be jam-packed, but you're fighting against the stigma of being a woman and then being a Black woman on top of that.
And we all have that list of places we want to perform, and I'm like thinking, okay, well, AGT's gonna get me in, Denver Comedy Works and the Improv and all the Funny Bones. Like, I assume with the show, hoping, I'm like, now that I got this show, I'm gonna be booked at all the top in the country. Like, I expected, I was counting on it, and it would just be one here and there. And I didn't be like, I don't know what you guys like and even outside of stand-up comedy, another example, I was tweeting about it. Jimmy Kimmel has been having stand-ins for him host the show. And there are 3 women thus far that they booked to do that. And so far it's been Whitney Cummings, Nikki Glaser, and Eliza Schlesinger. And I posted, I'm like, hey guys, there are other women in the business besides the 3 women you only refer to when you need someone. Of course, no one paid attention, but I hope somebody saw it. I'm like, these 3, they're fantastic at what they do. This is not about them, but they are the only ones that the mainstream, the top of Hollywood goes to when they want a comic who's a girl. And I'm like, there are so many women that could do this job, but they don't care. They don't have time. Inclusion is the problem. It's not even, you're right. It's not about new class, old class. It's about, can you just make the people, make the performers resemble how the world looks?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
What's wrong with that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So Jackie, one thing that's great about this pandemic that we're in is I've known you for so long and we had a conversation, and you alluded to it earlier in the podcast, is I found out that you have a law degree. And
Oh yeah.
it's crazy. Like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy to know that. Not that I'm surprised, because I've always found you extremely intelligent. What is what type of law do you want to practice? And please tell everybody, because you told me, I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag, but you're about to take the bar, correct? The bar
Yes,
exam.
I was planning on taking it in July, and that was not going to happen. And then they canceled July bar in California. I went to school in California to September because of the pandemic, and now it's been canceled again to be in October. So part of me is like, fuck this bar. Clearly, this is not the path. But I graduated 15 plus years ago, and the pandemic is just the reason why I'm like, well, what can I do in addition to figuring out my career that's going to be productive to help me just add another comma, another credit to my name? I just decided to take the bar, and I haven't started studying hardcore because I keep wanting to quit because the pandemic keeps changing the rules. And I graduated a long time ago. I didn't practice. I'm not licensed to practice law. I can practice federal law. Okay, like if you're about to be deported, Johnny, I can help you out. Why'd I pick Johnny? I don't know, but I can help.
Hey, you know what's funny about that?
What?
What's funny about that is I'm already like third generation. Ruben is first generation, so I'm Ruben first.
So Jackie, what type of law? If you could practice law, or what type of law did you study, or what type of law do you want to practice?
Well, when you're going to school, you're just taking all the curriculum that's required to get the degree. It's not until you graduate and take the bar and work that you're kind of like, okay, now I'm going to do divorce law, or I'm going to be entertainment. Then you kind of just get a job and figure it out as you go. So because it's so stringent on what you have to take to get the degree. So you can specialize, but it's like one class, and then you got to figure out your life after that. So if I were to quit entertainment, I'd want to be a criminal lawyer. I want to be a jury trial attorney. I want to be Law and Order. I tried it, and I realized that the real world is not Law and Order. It's not. Yeah. It's not sexy. You're not walking around in a sexy suit. I'm not fucking the judge on my lunch break. It's not like that at all. That's what I thought it was, and that's not what it is.
Would you be a defense attorney, or would you want to be on the prosecution side?
I would rather be on the prosecution to protect.
Really?
Yeah, because they put people away of color like crazy. And I know because I worked in a drug treatment program for women when I was a regular person. And those women, my job was to get them out of jail into a program if the crime wasn't violent. And that's a better alternative. The jails are filled with people are still in jail for weed. So if I was on the prosecution side, I'd be like, look, we don't need to lock everybody up for the bullshit. So I'd rather be on the side to help people of color or anyone just not have to end up the whole life ruined because, they had domestic dispute or whatever. Everything doesn't require serious time.
So Jackie, you being Jamaican,
yep.
How does your family feel about you going from law school to stand-up comedy?
They didn't care when I was doing it after work because I've always been able to, have a decent paying job because I had the degree. So stand-up comedy was after work for fun. It wasn't until I got fired, and when I got fired, my last 9 to 5 was 2010 at Caltech in Pasadena. And when they fired me,
how'd you get fired? What happened? Why'd you get fired?
That happened. I was, what it was when as soon as I got the job in 2008, 9-ish, as soon as I got the job, Who's Got Jokes booked me to do the contest. And it was like 2 weeks after I got hired, I had to go spend a week at the Luxor in Vegas. And I had to go to my boss like, hey, I know I just got this job, but I got to go. and they were like, go. But because it was the kind of job where they give you a laptop, you can work remotely, they were like, okay, fine, we get it. But they didn't know why I had to go. So as soon as I got the job, of course, because I didn't have time, that's when I got a commercial agent. I was going on auditions. I was gone almost every day for 2 hours during my lunch break to go to auditions. And I had shows every night. Of course, because I didn't have the time, I was hella busy and booked all the time. Okay? Because there was no time in the calendar, everybody wants to see Jackie Fabulous. Mm-hmm. So my boss called me in after, absences and traveling and calling in sick and being gone for lunch for, leaving and fuck this job. He was like, Jackie, you don't want this job. And I was like, no shit. And he was like, and I remember he said, like, well, maybe you should resign. And I was, smart enough to be like, I'm not quitting. You're not going to get unemployment.
Yeah.
I said, if you guys want me to go, you know what you got to do. And that was, and they wrote me up, and I was kind of like, I'm like, it is what it is. So then, like a few weeks later, they called me into the conference room. They had the envelope with the comp package ready. And they were like, Jackie, and I'm like, I know what this is. And they gave me my comp package. And literally the day I got fired, I had my new website up. I got on the company-wide email and sent them my schedule to come see a show. That's how I knew. And the whole, Caltech is fucking huge. And I'm like, well, now that I gotta go, come check me out of the Improv. So
you got anything, Jackie? Johnny, what were you about to say?
Well, I was gonna dabble into that as well but you already did that. One of the things that I always do research, unlike Ruben. But he's known you for a long time, so I get it. But I found this interesting. I'm sort of fascinated with when people take. Obviously, you're like Ruben said earlier, multifaceted. There's just so many things that you've been able to do. Tell me a little bit about your motivational speaker.
Oh, that's that. I've always wanted to do that because I'm a self-help junkie. All the self-help books, the videos, anything that makes you feel you can live your best life. I'm a sucker for all that crap.
Yeah.
And I just realized I was watching so many. You know what really triggered it? Joel Osteen. Oh, as much as he got all his controversy, I enjoy his messages. Okay. But all the speakers that are out there that are famous for helping people get their lives on track, they're always already rich. You rarely will see somebody who was broke, who didn't have a car that was paid for, who didn't have a mansion. So I just kind of was like, I want to do that because I'm fucked up. I can help someone who's fucked up. Like there's nobody that's on the rise as a speaker. And I did it once or twice for fun at colleges. And I realized that I'm like, and then money. I'm not gonna lie. When I would be like, you make a couple of hundred a night doing a weekend or any comedy show, but you can make several tens of thousands talking for an hour. And I'm like, it was fatigue. Fatigue just made me feel like being gone for 4 or 5 days at a comedy club before AGT and coming home with barely $2,000, if that. And I'm like, that was making me feel kind of like, I don't know if this road life is the life I want. And that happened a lot before the pandemic hit hard. Like I remember I was on the phone with my manager, Maggie, Ruben knows her, and I was kind of having a breakdown. I was in Arkansas, and no shade to the owner of that club out there, but some of these little, comedy club owners, some of them are just weird. And some of them are extra weird because I'm a girl and I'm, cute. So some of them, they don't do anything that requires any kind of, whistleblowing, but it's still, you feel that energy. You're just like, dude, I'm not here in the middle of nowhere. I'll see you at the show. Like I had one comedy club owner come to my hotel room before the show to give me the lay of the land. I'm like, that could have been done on the phone. So it just or before they say my name. Like we don't have to have orientation. Just say here's the microphone right there, and you're done.
Why are you at my hotel room half naked?
And he was a gentleman, but it was just I was working so much. It was a weird way to complain, but it was the road life. I realize now. I prayed for it for so long, and I headlined all the time before AGT. The AGT made it hardcore, and that's when I'm like, I'm not sure this is the life I want because I'm alone all the time. you know, and the guy I'm dating now, I'm like, the real reason why I want to date you is I need to have somebody with me on these gigs. Like, I don't want to be alone or traveling the country anymore. It's too much pressure. Men are weird. It can be dangerous. So, you know, Joey Wells. Oh, hey, Joey. He's making a comment.
Yeah, Joey Wells just said that you're one of his favorites. But you know what?
Okay.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Oh, you know, I didn't want to. I'm just curious about preparing an hour to do a motivational speech.
It's easy.
It really?
Yeah, because I'm not. First of all, they are all comedic speeches. None of them are real serious.
Right.
You're not gonna.
You throw it in.
Yeah. The whole thing is comedy based. Every word. And I knew that if it wasn't that, I couldn't do it.
I see.
And my very first one that paid the real money was in Vegas last August at the MGM for the Women Leadership Conference. Thousands of women, room packed. My first one on that level, and I figured out a way to talk about my life. Like, I didn't try to, lady, you can be this. I made it all about me. I made it all about immigrant parents. They don't get that I have dreams. I don't just care about. I don't want a 9 to 5 and then die. I felt like I never got good grades in school. I made it real personal. I'm divorced. I never really figured out how to be in love with a healthy, man and make it last. Like, I always made it about me. And the women in the room would always be like, shit, that's me too.
Related to it. Yes.
Yeah. So when you make it as personal as possible and then bookend it with funny, because usually speeches and speakers, they're not funny. They try to put a joke in here and there, but they're fucking snooze fest.
Yes.
But if you can go in there with funny and if you can kill giving a speech, that's a whole different feeling because you're being vulnerable. They're fucking crying half of the time. Literally, they're crying, laughing, and tears.
Yeah.
And then you see the check afterwards, you're like, well, shit. This is what the fuck I should be doing.
Well,
great. That's awesome.
One thing you said earlier that I think is great is you said most of these motivational speakers, are already wealthy, and it's great to see somebody's journey. Like, they could literally see in real time, you applying the things that you're telling them they can do. They can see it. You know what I mean? They can see the journey and relate to it in a different way. Yeah. Yeah.
What's funny is that I had a Zoom call with NBC a few weeks ago trying to pitch them a show. And the VP of, all things wonderful, I wasn't sitting here. I was sitting on my bed, and all you could see was my wardrobe. And he was like, well, that's interesting. I'm like, yeah, I ain't made it yet. That's why I'm on here pitching the show. And like, I was real like, dude, if you help me get the show developed, I'm in my childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
This is where I masturbated for the first time in this exact room. That's how you know my shit is not where it's supposed to be.
I love you.
I learned about sex literally here.
But what's funny is like a woman could come on here and say that, and we'll laugh about it. But if it was a dude in your same exact position, we'd be like, "What a fucking loser!"
Exactly.
In his childhood room, like Johnny hasn't gone back home because his father, when he first started doing stand-up, told him that he'd be back. So Johnny,
he refused it. He's like, never.
Can't do it. I could not. All those times when I thought about going back, but there's nothing in my hometown, Jackie. It's a small town. No offense to my hometown, but it's a small town in Central California. It's just like a farm area. So,
California's empty. Yeah.
Hey, Joey Wells said, hopefully her parents changed the sheets.
You know what? Is that ew?
Thank you.
You know what's funny is that literally 2 weeks ago, my boyfriend came over. He hasn't been in this house for 20 years. He came over. We came.
Whoa!
What?
Is this boyfriend like from high school or childhood sweetheart?
I met him when I was 18.
Wow.
and we separated because we were 18. We weren't together. We were friends. And then I moved to California. I was married. He had the military. We all kept crossing paths. And when I came back home now, he's like, well, but why can't we try now? So I brought him to my room a few weeks ago. He hasn't been here in years. When I tell you, I have never seen him this erect. He was so turned on. And I'm like, why are you more turned on here than I've ever seen you? It's just he was in my childhood bedroom and we did it and on the same sheets. That's why Joey made me think, like, I wonder, did we change the sheets? I don't think we did. I'm not sure. I don't think we did. But then again, at my age, we know how to not leave it evident. You know what I'm saying?
Damn, Jackie. Oh my God. So Jackie,
yeah.
You probably have answered this question a lot. Johnny's thing is acting up again.
Oh,
damn it, Johnny! It was going so well.
All right, I'll check back in then. Check me back in. Hold on.
Hey, okay. Are your headphones plugged in or no?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, and everything's shut off, so it's got to be something coming through my computer. Check me back in.
Yeah, just check out and check back in.
You got to check me out, don't you?
Oh, okay. Hold on. Man, see how quiet it gets as soon as he leaves? Maybe this is a sign.
All the feedback gone when he leaves. It's hilarious.
So I'm sure you answered this question before, because this is kind of the cliche comedy question of like, what made you start doing comedy? But I'm fascinated that you came to California for law school, to go to law school, and then you end up doing stand-up. Had you been thinking about stand-up prior
Never.
to you here? What happened?
I didn't have any entertainment dreams. I've always been funny. Like in my opinion, a natural comedian is naturally have a sense of humor. Absolutely. And I was working at LegalZoom.com on Hollywood Boulevard before I became a comic. And my girlfriend, Sarah, told me that there was a comedy class that Judy Carter taught that I should take. Because you know why? I had gotten my first set of black and white headshots taken around that time. Because I caught the bug. I caught the entertainment Hollywood bug. So they were like, well, you can keep doing that, but how about you try stand-up? One girlfriend, because I was making her laugh all the time. And she was like, you should try doing this for real. And I'm like, I have no idea. You know, if you really don't know this game, you have no idea how to start.
Yeah, very true.
So she gave me this information for this woman who had a class. I took her writing class after work for fun. And and I took her writing class, Judy Carter's comedy class, whatever years ago. And at the end of her class was the actual show, the first show ever, pro show at the Hollywood Improv. It was September 16th, 2005 was my first show on the Hollywood Improv stage after her class for 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And I took that class, did well. And of course, when you hear 5 minutes when you're new, you're like, how in the world can I tell jokes for 5 minutes? I don't see how that's possible. And I did that class, and it was because of the audience's reaction telling me, stick with it, you should do this. And I just did it for fun. I had no money dreams. It was all fun. Because I lived in Orange County, California after living in LA on Hollywood area. And I was always the only girl, always the only black person or black girl. So it was me and a whole bunch of white guys, comics. So I was kind of like, the little queen. I was the big fish in a small pond in Orange County, California. And that's where all of my confidence came from, because I was working, all of my training with stand-up came in bars. I'm a bar show aficionado because in Orange County ain't nothing but bars and lounges and whatever shows. So I did that for years. And hosting, I hosted like a motherfucker every show. And it was after doing that for a while that I moved to Los Angeles, when I started becoming a part of that culture. And comics were like surprised. They were like, why you got so much confidence? This is, nobody likes us out here. I'm like, well, I didn't start out here. I started in Santa Ana and Costa Mesa, where you can be a star if you're funny.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
When I got to Hollywood, I was already like, "What's the big deal, guy? This is fun."
Well, I always tell comics is like doing bar shows gives you an extra layer of confidence and being able to deal with rowdiness. That when you come to a civilized comedy club, you're like, wait, there's no TV room. It's quiet. There's no blender. No one's yelling.
I was just gonna say.
You know, it's like all these things that you have to learn to deal with in bar shows that almost prepares you. Like it's almost too easy sometimes when you come to the comedy clubs when everything is in order and set up the way it's supposed to be.
I think that's why I seemed like I was more seasoned than I was, because I was just comfortable. It wasn't a matter of being funnier than anyone or being more talented. I just had so many hours of hosting open mic, hosting a regular show, doing my, going from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And this is not like I was going on stage literally every night after work for like 3 years in Santa Ana. And my condo that I lived in was like 2 miles from where I was at. I had a home spot. So if you can build up your stamina in a home room, by the time you get to a professional room, they're looking at you like, where did this bitch come from?
Yeah.
Because you have so many hours of preparation and study that whatever, like you said, wherever you go, it could be I did the improv, Irvine Improv several times, other folk shows, full house, 300 plus. I get on stage like, this is fun. And you do better when your attitude is, I just want to have a good time. I've always been like, I just have a good time. And that would annoy a lot of comics. They're like, why the fuck are you so relaxed? I'm like, because first of all, this is supposed to be fun. I mean, I'm like, no one's having fun. You're not gonna get an Oscar. Fuck it, everybody get it, have a drink, and relax. Because I was a party girl comic before I became a serious comic. I was all the free drinks, flirting with all the guys, a happy time Jackie. So it wasn't. I had no pressure. Therefore, I got good quick.
What's dope listening to this though is it all comes back to your commitment and being consistent. Like you were going up all the time. And a lot of comics always ask me like, what advice do you have for me? What should I do? I go, get on stage as much as possible, perform as much as possible. And then at a certain point, you do want to make a transition. You don't want to get stuck. Yeah, you don't want to get stuck in the bar shows. But me and Johnny, we talk about this a lot because Johnny, and I think it had a lot to do with Johnny's style too. After a while, he's like, I'm done with these bar shows. And he used to go, why do you keep putting yourself through these bar shows, Ruben? Like, why do you keep doing them? Because I used to be so frustrated, but that's where the money was for me, because those shows paid. And Johnny was like, I can't do it, dude. Fuck that.
But not only did they pay, they give you free food.
Yes.
And drinks.
And you'd be like, I'm like, I don't know about y'all, but this world is very stress-free. I had my 9 to 5, so I had my real money in the morning. I'm like, I don't understand this world. I'm living the life. I didn't have a husband. I didn't have no kids. I was chilling.
Yeah, but for me to be able to go to what I used to tell Johnny, I go, like when you do a spot at a club, you're waiting for that check when you're doing local showcase spots at a club.
Yeah.
The thing that was dope about doing bar shows is you'll get your $100, $150 that night. You got food that night and you had a good time. So it's like you're actually going home with money that night. Yeah. And when you're grinding as a comic, that shit is important. I didn't have a day job. That was my job. So that's why I stayed in the bar scene longer than probably most. It was just because I was making money doing them. And, I see guys like Darren Carter and a bunch of guys. We would always go back to these bar shows because that's where the money was. And we're, Gabriel, before Gabriel blew up, like you just see all these guys rotating, Willie Barcena, and most of them were Latin rooms, because there weren't a lot of black bar shows. Most of them were run, right, Johnny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of those Latino rooms were great, man. That was a great way to make money. I jumped out for a second, so I don't know what you asked Jackie prior to. First of all, let me just say I cannot believe Judy Carter is still having her classes. I remember her in the LA Weekly, her ad back in the early to mid 90s, man. That's unbelievable. And good
I just asked Jackie, what made her get into comedy? That's the question. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I guess I can kind of piggyback. So we were on the same. Who was your favorite comic growing up? Who inspired you? What was there? And I know you did it for fun, but can you look back and kind of go, it was so and so that
before I became a comic, my addiction has always been, if it's not funny, I'm not interested in doing it or watching it. Like I'm a sitcom junkie. I have the typical immigrant parents who ignored you growing up. They're like, just go watch TV. If they don't want to talk to you, we're not gonna play with you. So I watched TV my whole life, and if it wasn't a comedy, I didn't want to watch it. So the only thing I remember watching and having it affect me in a way I can't even explain is Eddie Murphy Delirious. Like I know it verbatim.
Man.
And back then it was so taboo, so wrong, so not for kids. But I didn't know that. I just watched it thinking, well, this man's presence on stage, and then his movies came out after it. I'm like, I was obsessed. Still to this day, the only comic I'm a real fan of, where I cry if I know he's even like in the same city as me, is Eddie Murphy.
Isn't it crazy how, I mean, both of us, Jackie, and Johnny knows this story. It was Eddie Murphy's Delirious for me. Immigrant parents. My parents are always at church. I talked them into getting HBO. I don't know how I talked them into doing that because my parents didn't watch secular TV. It was only church stuff, and that's it. But somehow I talked them into getting HBO, and I remember them going to Bible study or something, and me watching HBO and seeing Delirious, and it changed my life in an instant. Like I had always been funny in class and class clown and all that stuff, but watching Eddie Murphy Delirious has such an impact. And he really changed, what I think later on had become black comedy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where he was the first comedian I had seen that had swag. Most comedians were goofy, silly. Even Pryor was really, but Eddie was fucking cool, like a R&B singer or some shit. Like, you know what I mean? He had.
What's funny that when I would hear stories of people talking about Eddie from back in the day, a lot of them are like, he's always been confident. Like y'all look at it like, is he cocky? No, he was, whatever he was born with, it was that I have it.
Yeah.
And I don't gotta be working to show it. I always have it. Like when I lived in LA, I was in San Fernando Valley, and there's the coffee shop that I don't want to say I don't want people to stalk him, but he had the coffee shop that he went to every day. And all the times as an actor not working, I'm in that coffee shop on my laptop. And he would come in whenever I was there. That wasn't every day, but whenever I was there, he was there. That was his everyday spot. And whether he came in with his now girlfriend or alone, he always came in and he would just suck the energy. He's the smoothest motherfucker in the world. He would suck the energy out of the room. He'd have on sunglasses. He don't talk to nobody. People left him alone because they're like, let the man get his fucking latte. And nobody fucked with him. And I remember he'd wear a tracksuit, and he would still have on his diamonds. The nigga was just like, he's just like, look, I know why God put me here.
I have a friend that's close with him.
Yeah.
And I remember one time he showed up, and I just clammed up because, he's that's my idol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What he did comedically and his career from SNL to all the movies. And he leaves. She goes, "Why are you so weird every time he's around?" I go, "Because that's Eddie Murphy. He's the reason." You know what I mean? Pryor and Carlin are probably, as a pure stand-up, those are my favorite. And obviously, Pryor was the blueprint for Eddie.
Yeah.
But just in terms of impact and making me want to be a comedian and an actor, and it was Eddie Murphy, point blank, period. He was that guy. And she was like, "Wow, I never really." I gave her a copy of one of Eddie's albums, and she hit some. She was like, "Damn, you used to be really funny." And she was like, "Where'd you get that album?" She was like, "Oh, my friend gave it to." Like, he's so just out in his own world.
I know.
Being a performer, like sometimes I don't think people like that realize the impact that they've had.
They don't even know. When he hosted SNL, literally, I'm still tingly from it. Like when I heard he was going to, I'm like, did y'all hear God is coming back? Like I was that excited. And then when he did it, I watched it. Like I cried the whole time.
Yeah.
And the one time whenever I saw him, I would be in that coffee shop behind my laptop. I know for a fact that he might. Well, this kind of doesn't make sense, but I feel like I know that he knows who I am because I was always the black girl in the corner of the coffee shop, looking up over the laptop when he come in, like. But I wouldn't approach him because I'm like, I don't want to. Because you don't want to be a groupie to your idol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one day, but I'm like, he came in by himself. I'm like, with his girlfriend, I'm not going to talk to him. If he comes in alone, at some point, I have to talk to him. So he came in by himself, do-rag and all, and I'm like, Jackie, he's alone. He's friendly. He's saying hi, talking. I'm like, today's the day. Today is the day. So when I went outside, he went out before me. I went outside. He was standing by some spaceship fucking car. And I'm like, and I said, Eddie, can I get a selfie? And all he said was, "Is your camera ready?" And I was like, "Shit." He was just like, that was his way of saying, like, I don't got time for you to fumble or look for it. And I was like, yes, sir, it is. Yes, it is. And I had it ready. And real close selfie. And he was so nice. But once again, his swag was like, don't waste my fucking time. The camera need to be up and let's do this.
Yeah, Johnny, tell Jackie about when Eddie Murphy, because before I had saw the performance, Johnny had watched it before me, I think, when Eddie hosted SNL. And tell her what you told me, Johnny. Do you even remember?
I don't. Well, I was going to tell her that I know that when you watched it after me, and we were texting back and forth, and you were going, "Man, dude, he's still so funny to me." But what did I text you? What did I don't remember.
I think I had recorded it because I had a show that night or something. And then I remember getting back and I was like, yo, what was it? And he was like, yo, dude, he's still above and beyond everybody. You know, on that show, he's like, he's so good, Ruben. Like everything just still works. And that's a gift, man. Like to be able to come into an environment. These guys do it on a weekly basis.
That's right.
Shows up and he's still better than everybody.
And you mean SNL, right?
Yes, when he
and what I told Ruben was, you see so many celebrities go on SNL, and I know he did it as well. He was a cast member, but that was so long ago. This guy is hitting his marks. He's not the cue cards. You can't even tell he's reading. Like there are major actors who just cannot do that. They cannot step in that environment and be relaxed. And it looked like he was the cast member still there this entire time. And to go back to Delirious, I grew up listening to Richard Pryor, so he was one of my early favorites. But I remember my sister and my brother-in-law, my other sister and her husband, so that they rented it. And I was with them and I was younger, and I just remember watching it with them, and I was laughing, but I was in awe as well as what he was doing to them. Like they were in tears, especially when they got to the ice cream and you're on the whale and all. They were literally wheezing, and I remember that was the time, Ruben. Like I felt like as a kid listening to Pryor, that was unattainable. Like comedy was out of the question. That isn't something from a small town. I was just like, I'll never do this. But when I saw Eddie, when I saw Delirious, and what I thought was different that I had not seen yet was his impersonations and where he took, the Honeymooners and Elvis. And I was a big fan of Elvis at the time. I just thought this guy, his talent was just so immense, man. And he's a groundbreaker for me too, man, for like really going, wow, I would love to try to do that someday. It was absolutely amazing.
That confidence, man, that Jackie that we're all talking about. I just
was only 21, right, bro? 21.
Yeah, I think he was 21 when he did that special. And I just remember Eddie being that cool. And then when you see like Def Comedy Jam and that hip hop comedy era and the swag black people will have when they perform and yo, what's up? And like all that is derived from Eddie, man.
Yeah.
Like all that vibrato and that confidence, like Martin Lawrence, just Martin's demeanor, like it was influenced by Eddie because Pryor was a different beast, you know what I mean? And he was so open and so vulnerable. Yeah. And I remember Chris Rock saying that I don't want to misquote him, but I remember him saying something about trying to be cool in comedy is death to comedy. You know, like when people try to be too cool for the room. And Eddie had the ability to have that confidence, but at the same time, through his impressions and his talent, was able to bring characters in that didn't separate him from his audience, which is a very hard thing to do when you're that fucking cool. You know what I mean? When you're wearing all leather and you're wearing gloves with a ring on it, to still be relatable is just unbelievable.
Yeah, not many people are born with a gift that doesn't die with age.
Yeah.
And when he had this whole Netflix movie come out and SNL, he was on the interview trail, and I watched all the ones that I could find. He's never had acting lessons. When he did 48 Hours, he was like, I've done nothing. I would just get the job and do the job. So,
well, you know, there's an interesting story. I don't know if you know this, Johnny. Maybe we've talked about this. Is, you know, he almost lost that gig for 48 Hours. They said when he showed up, he was terrible. And I guess Eddie's agent was dating the director or had some type of relationship with the director. It was like, I'm telling you, he's the guy. You gotta give him another opportunity. Because like you said, he was the dude on SNL. Then he came to 48 Hours. He had all the swag, and it wasn't working at first. There's a documentary about it. What's the guy's name? Something Hill, who did.
I think Eddie told that story, and I remember he said that somebody fucked so and so. That's how he got the job. And
it was an agent.
He made that jump. He was like, "Hey, do what you got to do."
Yeah. It's amazing how when you
he said my agent fucked the director. That's how I got the job.
Yeah. Yeah, it was to a point where they weren't sure. I guess the first day was a little rough. And I remember hearing a story about Chris Tucker when he auditioned for Fridays. His audition was so terrible that Robbie Reed was like, "Hey, Ice Cube really loves you, so please take this home, do what you got to do, and come back."
Yeah.
Like, if that was me and Johnny always say, if that was me, then I'm like, okay, thank you.
You know what? But Wanda Sykes has always said that she hates and is still not good at auditioning. Like she doesn't get work from auditioning. She doesn't do well in the room. She hates the whole, and that's for me. Like, I don't hate it, but I'm whatever it is, and I'm still young in the game. I'm not grabbing them in my audition. I don't know what has to happen. And my problem is always my challenge is like, I have yet to bring that stand-up comedy confidence into the audition room.
Into the room,
That's the problem. When I'm on stage, I'm like, whatever happens, I'm gonna give you your money's worth. But when I'm in the audition room, you can still see I hope I do well. And I've been growing out of that because now I have more of a like, look, you get what you get. But for a long time, I was kind of like, I don't know how to bring that woman into this small ass room.
Well, Jackie, you alluded to it earlier. Like you became a good stand-up by repetition, and I think the frustrating thing about auditioning sometimes is, you know, you don't audition enough. Like you might have an audition tomorrow, and then you don't have another one for another 2 weeks, or you know what I mean, the infrequency of it. But I think for me, one thing that I realized, especially when I used to audition a lot, was I felt like I needed that repetition, so I got into an auditioning class, and when I was a working actor, that was one of the things that helped. Was even if I wasn't auditioning, I was still auditioning every week in a class with that, and they created the same tension that you would have in an audition. So
that's what I was hoping to get into when I moved back to New York. But I also use comedy as a clutch. Like I also like my schedule. I'm very good at literally performing 30 nights a week. I mean, I'm sorry, 30 nights a month because it's easier. I'm like, I can control what I do there. I can't control Hollywood. So I would kind of rely on the schedule being all filled. And then I'm like, I don't got to worry about acting. I have, 8 spots at the Cellar tomorrow. But I was trying to break out of that dependency before all this happened and asking for advice on where I should go for acting class. Because stand-up comedy, when you get good enough, you could be like, you know what, I'm done. And I don't want to be done. Like I want to direct. I want to produce, create my own shows. So stand-up comedy can become a crutch after a while.
Well, I'm glad you said that because That's what I was thinking, because earlier you said you kind of came to the realization that, hey, the road is not for me, right?
Not
Like
not 100%. No way.
yeah, like on that level. So I know you alluded earlier, or you stated earlier that you had pitched some projects, and me and you talked about that privately. Like, what does Jackie want to do? Like, if you can call it into existence, what is it? What do you want your career to be? What's your trajectory? Like, what does Jackie want?
I want to have power. I want to be a woman in power in Hollywood. I want to executive produce, write, and create and star in some of my own projects. Like people like Wanda, I love because she's everything, but she does them one at a time. Like she'll executive produce a project and bring that to fruition, and she'll be in a movie. She'll stop doing all that to prepare for a special and go on tour. Like I want to do all that, and you can, but you can't do it all at the same time. But I want to break out of 100% stand up, and I want to produce my own projects, be on TV. Have the power to give other people, I know every comic in the universe, and so many of them don't ever get a chance to get off the comedy stage, and I want to be able to, I want to produce projects that are on TV, sitcoms. Like I grew up on that, and my dream is to be in a sitcom, whether I made it or not. But I want to create stuff and do stand up because I want to, not because I have to.
Yeah. Well, good. I mean, it's nice to hear you say that out loud, because a lot of times we have these thoughts and these goals and these dreams that we keep them to ourselves, and saying it in a public forum like that is, it's an affirmation, and I believe you can accomplish anything that you want to accomplish. And the thing that I admire about you, maybe it's just me, somebody else would have a different thing, is you never tell me no. Like it's rare that Jackie ever says no to me.
Oh, once I like you, I'll do whatever you say. Once I like a person, I have a if and it doesn't matter what race or what gender. If I like you, I'll do it. Money, no money, it doesn't matter, because I know that the majority of my career success has been word of mouth. Yeah, and without positive word of mouth, I wouldn't be able to work anywhere that I want. And I'm at a place now where I'm like, if my name comes up, hopefully more often than not, you'll hear, oh yeah, she'll be good. She's professional. She's on time. She's respectful, and she'll be funny. Like people don't realize how important the funny stuff is. Great, but that is not top three.
That's right.
Yeah, I just want you to know, like, I don't take any of that for granted, and it's just always when you have friends who are talented as yourself, and like I can name a lot of comics who, I'm the type of person who hates to ask anybody to do anything, and that's the thing that I'm. That I've had to get over. So it just makes it easier when you have really good, talented friends. They're like, yeah, of course. Like Ian Bagg told me one time, he's like, Ruben, I'm never going to tell you no. Like, just tell me what time. If I could do it, I'll show up, but I'm never going to tell you no. And that, I really appreciate that from my peers.
You're welcome, Ruben. You're welcome.
No, Tommy, I have to convince them to do it because you're on.
And because Ruben, you and I know comedians, in common, who have all the talent in the world, but their reputation is fucking horrible. Yeah. So they should put themselves in the foot. Not Johnny. You know who I'm in.
I'll just give them shit.
Jackie, it's because Ruben, he'll ask me to do something. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
He'll ask me, like, hey man, are you interested? And I'll go, what's involved? Who's involved? How long is the project? Let me think about it.
I talk to this motherfucker almost every day. And if there's a project, it's like, all right, I can't call Johnny because I know he's gonna throw me through the ringer. And it's like, and then people ask me, like, what about Johnny? I go, I don't know, man. You guys don't know Johnny. I'm not asking Johnny shit right now. I gotta wait.
And keep in mind, I don't want to sound all wholesome. I usually say yes to people who I know I'm gonna need at some point.
Yeah, true.
Keep it real. I say yes to people who I'm like, I'm gonna say yes because I know I'm gonna have my own project, and I'm gonna be like, hey, so and so does that, the other. That's how you keep a network. If you say yes to people who you value, you can ask them. You can hit you up later and be like, hey, I've heard you're doing this. Can you help me find this, that, and the other? That's how you're supposed to do it. That's how we get shit done.
Me and Rodney Perry, we're talking about something. We talk all the time, but the point was, and I had this conversation with Johnny. I just got to the point where I'm just going to say yes to opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because sometimes we can overthink things and we can go, well, but it's like, what do we have to lose? You know what I mean? And especially in this climate with how entertainment is going, you just never know what's going to lead to something else. As long as you're not compromising your integrity, who knows what can end up happening by just saying yes and helping somebody, or just, what else do I have to lose? You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially if I know
work begets work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. And I have there are people's names who come up that who are always working. So if they ask you to do something, you're like, well, they're usually on the move. Why wouldn't I say yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Their reputation and that they're always busy. So yeah, they're always busy. So I want to, whatever they're doing, I know it's going to be credible.
Yeah. Well,
it's like, oh, go ahead.
No, Johnny.
No, but that's funny because Ian Bagg asked me to do his round table around the bag or whatever, and he asked me last week. Yeah, okay. But he asked me last week. He's like, "Do you want to do tomorrow?" He asked me on Monday of last week. He goes, "Do you want to do tomorrow night show or do you want to do the following week?" And I have Amir K on that, and I go, can I think about it? Can you give me 2 hours? This is me. I'm just so heady. So then I waited a couple of hours and then I texted him. You know what, man?
It's Ian Bagg and Amir K. Those are good, credible names.
Yeah,
Johnny,
but I needed. But I needed to do the one the following week. So I go, you know what, dude? I don't want to do the one tomorrow night. I'll do the one which I ended up doing last night, which was fantastic. But Ruben gives me a hard time because I'm very heady. So when somebody asks me, I gotta go, what's involved, who, how many people, and then I'll get back to you.
I have friends like you where I'm like, I know he or she would kill it, but they're gonna ask me too many goddamn questions. So I'm not going to ask them. We all have that friend where like they wouldn't murder this, but they're a pain in my ass when I ask them to do shit.
Thank you. I mean, and Jackie, this is when I knew I wasn't crazy. I was randomly talking to Rudy Moreno, and Johnny's name came up, and he's like, "Oh," and I was like, "What?" He's like, "Oh man, Johnny Sanchez. Oh, dude, when you ask him to do a gig, man, you got to have a list of things. He's want to come measure the stage. He wants to come early to put up lights. He's like, it's too much, man." And I go, "Oh, dude, I thought it was just me." He's like, "No, are you kidding me?"
I drove Rudy crazy for years because after a while, "All right, Johnny, the gig's going to be at this place. The stage is an 8 foot by 14 foot. They have white lighting. They got good sound system." But he would just give me everything. And I go, "Oh, sounds great, man. Sounds great. I'm there, bro. I'm there." So I tormented Rudy for so many years with gigs, man. Yeah. I got to get out of that. I'm just going to say yes. I'm going to say yes.
Or be proud of the no. There are comics that I know are going to say no, but they're still going to ask, like David Arnold. I could have a gig and be like, "Hey, Dave, I want to," and he'll be like, "I'm not doing it." Yeah. And I know that he adores me, but I also know if I don't have all the stars in alignment, he's going to be like, "Not interested."
Yeah,
and it's nothing personal.
Yeah, that's just David. I love him. Like I'll hit David up and I'll go, "Hey, can you do Ruby Tuesdays?" And he'll be like, there's a pause in the return text.
Yeah.
He'll be like, "What time?" And then I'll tell him, and then it's a pause. And I'm like, "Motherfucker, I know, I see the bubbles. Just answer." And then he'll go, "Yeah, I do." And I go, "All right, thanks for being so enthusiastic, David Arnold." Thank you. He's always great. He always shows up. He always kills it. But yeah, it's funny when you have those type of friends. Chris Spencer will give you the runaround.
Oh, Chris will he'll answer the text with one answer, with one word. And I'm like, I don't know, what are you considering it? I don't understand. You don't really know what you're gonna get. You're like, I don't know whether he's on board or not. I have no idea.
Yeah. You learned that through the process. So before we get you out of here, you made the transition to New York in the comedy scene. Like, how do you feel being there? We're just talking about comedy. Are you happy you made that move to New York?
Oh my God, I'm so partially because the comedy. I just spit the Comedy Cellar. I used to come home on the holidays or whenever I'd come home, and I would go to the cellar and just stand outside and watch. And I was like a child. I would stand outside the doors and be like, one day. And I would look at the list and they put the comics who's going to be performing on the list outside. And I try and find someone that I know or that I've slept with, see if I can get in there. And for years. And I auditioned to get in there 3 times. So I'm so grateful and so happy to be in what they say is like the best club in the world, primarily because they don't censor me. Sometimes clubs in LA do censor me, like Comedy and Magic. I love it. They're my home club in LA. But every now and then, if I drop too many F-bombs, I get an A. Can you talk to you for a second? Which I understand. I get what they're doing. But the sellers, like, if you want to discuss the abortion you had last year, please feel free. Like, they have no rules. There's no censorship. So I feel at home there because I could talk about literally. I can freestyle. I freestyle there so much to find my way to a new joke. So I feel like the New York comedy scene fits me because they don't care. They're like, we don't care about AGT. We know, but we'll say it in the intro, but we really don't give a shit. All you got to be here is funny.
Yeah.
You better be funny. And if you're not funny, you'll never be back here again.
And you mentioned that you feel at home and continuing on the home topic. Does your mom ever come out to see you perform?
No, that's not it. No, she's never coming. She came to LA. She came to LA to one round of AGT because AGT paid for it and flew her out. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
AGT's like, we want to get some footage of you and your mom. She was there. That was her first time seeing me perform ever. She's never been to a show. Has not watched shit online. Doesn't care. When she saw me do a show and saw a room stand up, that's when she was like, "Oh, all right, this is real." And I'm like, "I've been telling you for 14 years, this is the last job I'm going to have."
Wow.
So, but they don't care. They still don't care.
Hilarious.
I gotta be rich for her to be like, "Oh, this now."
John Moody had a question before we get out of here. John Moody goes, you can read it. You can be great at the audition when they want someone else. There isn't much you can do. I auditioned for New York Undercover. I had all 10 pages of size memorized. Jackie Brown says to me, "Thanks for being so well prepared. Good job. You ain't getting the part."
In regards to that, like not a problem, but what I've found happen a lot in Hollywood is there's a group of women that look like me that always get booked before me because they're already celebrities. So I'm David Arnold. I would complain to him like I can't book anything. He's like, "Jackie, when Yvette Nicole Brown, Sherry Shepherd, Kim Whitley, and Retta and Lonnie Love, when they're busy, you'll get the part." And he's been right. He's like, until everyone that looks like you is busy, because you are younger than all of them. I mean, relatively in the game. So they have seniority. They're the one that Hollywood goes to first. So I have to create my own. And I am creating my own so that I could be like, look, I can't wait for them. Because when I would go to an audition, or I would even text them like, "Hey, Yvette, I need for your ass to get a job so I can get a job." Because if they're at home with me, I'm not going to be working. If Kim Whitley is at home, I'm not going to get a job. Like they're my family, but if they're home, there's less chance that I'll get booked because they hire them first.
But kind of alluding to what we talked about earlier, I think that is what needs to change. And I mean, every time I see Sherry or Kim Whitley or any of my friends working, I'm extremely happy and excited for them. But we need to expand this thing.
I know
there's a lot of talented people out there. There's the same people. Like I was watching a show not too long ago, and I think I was joking around. I don't know if this is with Johnny, when you're seeing like Morris Chestnut playing a high school student, like he's 50. Stop. He's literally like they're shaving his mustache and like, come on, can we just get other actors, give other actors opportunities to tell stories? You know, I just think it's about giving, you know, we got to open this thing up more, and it shouldn't be one at a time. It shouldn't be like, okay, we have our list of Black women. Okay, if they're not ready, then we'll usher in some more. I think that has to change. I really do.
I think now with all the racial problems we've been having, everyone is creating their own. And now, like I thought about it, like all the shows that I've been pitching for TV shows, most of them could be online now. Like they don't, unless it's a sitcom, which that can be too, but all these talk show type shows or forum or reality, you know, now bring them to the internet because everyone is at home, and now all these networks online and in the world, they're looking for content. So I can keep auditioning, but I'm also going to prepare my own shit, and I'm going to green light my own project because you have to, because otherwise you'll be a comic forever and be like, I wanted to be, you know, on TV, but nobody wanted me. I can't do that anymore. It makes me crazy.
And now, you don't have to wait anymore. We don't have to wait for Hollywood to pick us and choose us. I think we can create our own projects, and you can get eyes on it from the public, because once the public finds it and they say it's possible,
they'll watch it, and you can get paid from them watching it.
Yeah, and then Hollywood is going to follow them. They're going to be like, oh, people really like this Jackie Fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be in business with them. So it's about creating your own vehicles now.
Yeah, because the same show that I pitched, that they were like, because I told the executive, I'm like, very wonderful, nice man. I told him my number one thing is everyone tells me, Jackie, we love you, but that's what I always get. So I'm like, the same project I pitched to him that he pitched to the network, and they loved me and blah blah. But they were like, it doesn't fit what we're looking for. I'm gonna release it myself.
Yeah.
I'm like, and hopefully, if it's meant to be, it'll be a hit, and he'll call me and be like, hey, remember that project that we said no to? And I'm like, well, it's too late. We're a hit. We don't need you. I mean, I'll say yes to him then, but I'm just saying.
But it's that whole thing of we love you, but, and I got to the point where I'm tired of hearing people say how much they love me. And I remember telling a manager one time, I was like, if they love me so much, why don't they hire me? Show me the love by actually hiring me. Why is it okay to say no all the time? You know, because a lot of times it's, you know, it's who's putting the most pressure on. If somebody has a stronger team or better connected to somebody, they go, oh yeah, we really like you, but you know, even when you know you're the best person for the job, I've had producers tell me like, you were really our choice, but we had to go this way because X, Y, and Z. So it's about creating your own projects. But Jackie, I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for joining us. I just feel like we just scratched the surface of
Thank you, Johnny.
And I wish you, you know, continued success. I know the people over here at this company love you, and I think you guys are going to be doing a project together that they told me about that I'll talk to you.
That's right, baby. We're gonna make it happen. Fuck everybody else. I don't want to be on stand-up comedy stages forever. My back hurts. I want to sit down.
Yeah, well, they love you, and they're excited about it. And so I'm excited for you, and of course, the project that I'm working on, you'll be a part of that also. So
that was fun.
Yeah, it was great. But Johnny, you got anything for the great Jackie Fabulous before we go?
No, this was fantastic. This was great, man. This was great. I enjoyed getting to know so much more about you, just asking you questions, but also through Ruben, because he knows you so well. It's fantastic.
It's just weird. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just getting to know Johnny, tag teaming at the Laugh Factory.
I know.
It was becoming a regular thing where he bring me up or I bring him up. It was just becoming a regular thing, and then they all played.
Yeah.
What's great about these podcasts is, like I said, a lot of us have known each other and worked with each other so many times, and then when you start talking on the phone and, you know, interacting, you're like, whoa, I had no idea. I didn't know you did this and you did that. So it's great to kind of learn about people you admire. So thank you once again. Jackie Fabulous. And for you guys listening, tell a friend. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you can find.
YouTube, yeah. And then let Jackie give her handles where everybody can.
Where can people find you, Jackie Fabulous?
JackieFabulous.com is my website that leads you to everything. I have a comedy album out right now called Fabulously Naughty. You can get it Fabulously Naughty. You can get it everywhere you can buy albums. And please subscribe to my YouTube page. I have my new show, Relatable with Jackie Fabulous. That's on IG Live and IG TV and YouTube. And I'm trying to make that the next big, besides my next big. And just follow me and join everything so that I could make a living doing this. Because even though I love working without pants, I'm not wearing any pants right now. I want to get to the next level. No pants, Johnny. Just a bra, a t-shirt, and the truth.
Also, wait, real quick. Don't you have some type of book series or something with Find Your Fabulous or something like that?
I wrote a book years ago, and I'm writing. I had a book deal, but I haven't been writing it because of the bar exam. Everything got all jumbled up.
Gotcha. Okay,
that's next. That's probably next year. I got to one thing at a time, Johnny. I can't do everything.
Well, everybody, please support Jackie Fabulous. You know where to find her. You can go to her website, JackieFabulous.com, and it will lead you to everything that she's doing. Please support her. She's one of the best out there, and we are grateful to have her on the show. And look forward to having you back on. So, again, this has been the best of everything with Ruben Paul and Johnny Sanchez and our wonderful, wonderful guest, Jackie Fabulous, and we are out.
Ruby motherfucking Tuesdays.
This show is all about diversity and bringing everyone together. You never know who you're going to see at Ruby Tuesdays.